Hello folks, Jared here talking about Cornhusker football once again. We are back after the rain out last week of Akron game. That had to be for all Husker fans, players, administration, faculty, anybody remotely has anything to do with Nebraska, from, the Scott Frost to the fan clear down in Florida watching to get ready for that game had to just be the worst thing that's ever happened that I can remember. Don't remember ever having a game get called before. So, especially the season opener. If it was maybe the third game against Troy and something like that happened, yeah, it'd be a major disappointment and people would be bummed. But it wasn't like this. When you were coming, all these months building up to Scott Frost's first game, he just comes out of the tunnel walk and instant bummer, But at any rate, what do you do? I think the university did everything that I would have wanted them to do. People said, oh, you could have had it earlier. Please, you have it earlier and change everybody's plans, then people are just going to be mad when it turns out later, what if it doesn't get rained out? Then you look even more foolish by doing something like that. So they tried to have it the next morning. Sounds like Nebraska would have. Akron backed out, said they couldn't get the arrangements they wanted. So what do? It sounds like there's certainly still a possibility of a 12th game. So, here we go. We're on to Colorado. The biggest game so far. Turns out to be the first game of the year when it was supposed to be the second, but the first really big game you saw on the schedule for Scott Frost was Colorado, and here it is already. So, I don't get to go over any predictions or results from the Akron game because obviously there wasn't one, so I'm just going to roll right into Colorado. Bill McCartney coming out this week saying he'd rather be dead than red. He's stirring up the old Colorado-Nebraska rivalry. Nebraska fans never really considered it as big a rivalry as Oklahoma, but they did get pumped about it for a few years in there, when Cordell Stewart and Darian Hagan back in those days when, Colorado was pretty dang good. But most of the time, as Nebraska has with most teams in this history, besides a few, Nebraska usually came out on top. I believe they'll come out on top this week. That Montez from Colorado is a heck of a quarterback, but I think Nebraska, being into that home crowd, going through the disappointment of last week of not getting to play, granted, that's one game you don't get to play to get ready for big-time action, but at the same time, Colorado doesn't have tape on Nebraska now to watch, where Nebraska gets to watch a game of Colorado's. Don't underestimate that with Scott Frost and his ability to game plan. It's going to be almost as big an advantage as playing a game would have been, because he gets to see what their basis of what they're trying to do is. Even though he would have had that from last year, this is just another step in their progression. So he's going to get to see that. They get to see nothing of what these new players we got, these guys like Bell and Jones out of the backfield, Hunt as a receiver, the new defensive guys we got, the transfers. They get to see none of this and how it's going to compile together on the field. So it's a major advantage for Nebraska to, have tape, and Colorado to not have tape. So I think Nebraska pulls it out with that home crowd frenzy. I think we'll win by maybe 10, 14 points. I would guess a score of 42-27. Close game, we pull away late, and that's the way I think it's going to happen. But at any rate, we're ready for football in Husker Nation. I can promise you that. That last week was, I actually didn't totally melt down like I had feelings of doing. When I saw the guy with the red blazer walking on the field, I looked at the radar, and it did not look good for a game. About 9 o'clock, I was just like, I don't think this is going to happen, because the storm just kept moving up and moving right at Lincoln. So definitely ready for football. Going to look to beat the Buffaloes Saturday. Hope everybody has a good time. Go Big Red. Beat Colorado.